for coming back for another segment of Michigan Conservative Roundtable. Mac and TJ here at you. And if you haven't guessed by now, I like reading a lot of political commentary. And so I read a political commentary titled 2019 was the year that Democrats went off the rails. And it was written by a Frank, and I always hate butchering people's last names. I will spell it Miele. Sorry, Frank, however it's pronounced.
Miley is how I would say.
All right. First name Frank, I can get that much right. He writes this commentary, and I always encourage people to read these articles that I reference. One, so you don't know I'm making it up. Two, you can't cover everything in these articles. And I would just tell you, this guy wrote it with comedy in mind. He seriously addresses articles and then puts a sarcastic, comedic twist to the actual events that he mentions. And I'll just read a portion of his first sentence here in regards to January 3. January 3. Democrats took over the Animal House of Representatives and immediately pledged to take down President Trump. He's kind of right there, but they were pledging to take him down the day after we won the election.
The day of.
They just didn't have control of the House, and this touches on a sore spot when I've said at least twice on two previous occasions, thank you to everyone who sat on their hands or didn't take the midterm election seriously, because now we're dealing with this whole nonsense
and all
in the House of Representatives.
All these Republicans who found it, and they're doing it again, found it necessary to retire now.
Yeah, you know what? That does have me worried. I know what's, I get as frustrated with our side as I do the other side, in that point. January 15th. An apparent Messiah complex leads Senator Kirsten Gillibrand to join dozens, and then he has in parentheses, hundreds of other Democrats offering themselves as the chosen one to defeat Donald J. Trump. He mentions a few of the dozens here. Jay Inslee, Marianne Williamson, and I especially have to stop and make... if you watch the 5 at 5, Greg Gutfeld, I believe, had a crush on Marianne Williamson. I think he tried seriously to get her on his show. They have nothing in common politically other than, I guess, Greg Gutfeld thought she was pretty. But I'm being serious. All he's got to do is hear her name and off Greg goes. John Hickenlooper, our favorite, Beto O'Rourke, Bill de Blasio, Julian Castro, Steve Bullock, and there were others. Okay? January 29th. Democrats encounter a detour on their road to ruin when Empire actor Jussie Smollett claimed to be the victim of a hate crime on the streets of Chicago. If you recall, he made the accusation. I think he said they wore MAGA hats, didn't he?
Yeah.
And how he was attacked by people wearing MAGA hats.
Who yelled, "This is MAGA country, Chicago, Illinois."
And then it ended up being guys from Nigeria, I want to say. Physical trainers of his or something. That as the whole story fell apart, you would have Juan Williams saying, "Yeah, but it still addresses a legitimate issue." You know what? Gag me with a splintered wooden soup spoon, okay?
Well, if it's so prevalent, why do you need these fake things to make your point? Why don't you give me a real case where that happened?
Yeah, he refers to it as the second coming of Tawana Brawley, Frank
which was a massive fraud as well, perpetrated by the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Yep. February 21st, Smollett was arrested for filing a false police report, but thanks to a corrupt system in Chicago, thank you, Barack Obama, he walked away without even a slap on the wrist for his staged crime.
To be fair, Chicago's been corrupt for 100 years,
Yeah.
long before Obama. He just knows how to play that game.
They suspect an Obama connection
Yeah.
in getting him off the hook there. Okay. March 22. Democrats thought that Robert Mueller was the Easter Bunny when he delivered his report on Trump and Russia. It turned out to be a big goose egg.
Which, I don't know if that's a faux response, because they know they made it up.
Yeah.
I mean, they know they made it up. So why are they disappointed when it didn't come out the way they wanted?
They subpoenaed him. Attorney General Bill Barr tried to warn them that there was no there. But I think they were, I always wondered if maybe they were hoping Mueller would come out there and say something that they could run with.
Yeah.
And
Well, he kind of did, in so much as,
obstruction.
yeah.
But when they're, per Bill Barr, if there's no there, just how much can you really say?
Well, when a jury gives its verdict, it says guilty or not guilty. It doesn't say not guilty, but it could still be true.
Okay, and this next one could be one of my favorites here. March 25th, CNN's preferred candidate for president, porn star lawyer Michael Avenatti.
Oh, he was great.
Yeah, he is arrested for an extortion scheme plotted against Nike. I gotta wonder. I have not heard much of the detail on that. I'm trying to figure out what was he trying to do to extort them. What are the details? I mean, it appears to be the case because it sounds like this guy's in a lot of trouble. But how do you extort a tennis shoe company? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, it's the way you extort anybody, I guess. Quid pro quo.
He would later be indicted on 40 federal crimes, and this was supposed to be the savior to take out Donald J. Trump. April 25th. Entering Joe Biden, ignoring former boss Barack Obama's wise counsel. You don't have to do this, Joe. He has it in quotations, so I'm assuming that was actually said. This sentence here kind of humored me. Leaps from comfortable irrelevancy to irrelevant, corrupt con man politician who will have to answer for his bragging about a quid pro quo in Ukraine. And then he says, talk about poetic justice. If you've seen it, and you got to go pretty deep into the video when he's speaking before with the Federal Trade Commission, I think it was, when he's talking about how he was bragging up on stage, how he successfully threatened to withhold over $1 billion in aid to Ukraine if they didn't fire the guy that was investigating the company that his son was on the board of. So that's kind of what that was all about there.
Well, that's what you do those kind of, because people will say, why the hell would he say something like that? When you
Arrogance.
feel like you're untouchable.
Yeah.
And you know what? All the evidence seems to point to the fact that he and the Clintons and the Obamas and others are untouchable.
And they haven't even, they can't even, I've really seen no denial as to the intent of that conversation either. So that was seriously said and meant and everything else.
Wasn't a joke.
May 3rd, unemployment falls to 3.6%. I know in the past people on the right have argued what the true unemployment rate is, but nonetheless, if we're gonna go by the Democrats' definition, then we'll have to go with the 3.6% of unemployment, the lowest in 49 years. By October of last year, it was down to 3.5%, setting a 50-year record. Jobless numbers for blacks, Latinos, and other minorities.
At record lows.
And speaking of minorities, President Trump may be legitimately doubling his support with the minorities, if you can even believe that.
If not more.
They say if this does come to fruition, this could seal his efforts in 2020. June 27th. Here's a good one. All 10 Democrats in the first presidential primary debate on NBC raised their hands when asked if they would guarantee health care coverage for illegal aliens. And then he writes, and he's being sarcastic here, Democrats swooned, but the rest of us just felt sick. You know, you wonder how can that even be seriously suggested?
Well, I'll tell you how.
You know,
Or an example, going back to your last point when you talked about how Trump might get a great deal larger percentage of the black vote. It's believed, and it's believed by Democrats. That's why they have to replace blacks with Hispanic invaders.
yeah. Yeah.
I don't mean to seem to be unkind about that, but these people are breaking the law. You can call it undocumented, or you can call it whatever the hell you want. They're here illegally. They broke into our country, and now we're going to take care of them. That's the reward for the crime they committed, and it is a crime to enter this country and work in this country illegally.
Next, August 24. At their summer convention in San Francisco, the Democrats, the defenders of climate change, voted against holding a climate change presidential debate. 3 days later, Greta Thunberg would stand up in the UN and say, "How dare you?" And you know what? They voted against holding a climate change presidential debate. You know, how dare they? All right. August 28th, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, she withdraws from the Democrat presidential nomination. Whatever. September 3rd. This touches on a hot sore spot. September 3rd, San Francisco Board of Supervisors passes a resolution calling the National Rifle Association domestic terrorist organization. You know, I think we did a video on that where I voiced my disgust. You know. Unfortunately, there's nothing humorous about that whole situation. Let's see. September 9th, Inspector General of the Intelligence Community, Michael Atkinson, he is forced to launch a third unsuccessful coup against President Donald Trump involving the CIA, with concerns urgent and credible whistleblower complaint, and involving the president of Ukraine. His name was Volodymyr Zelensky, and you know they made the accusation. If you recall, they made the accusation against President Trump, and he, like the next day, released transcripts of the call. I don't believe they thought he was going to do it. I mean, why would they say what they said, thinking he was going to release the transcript? This goes to their insanity.
I think they were counting an awful lot on. I think they're confusing whistleblower with an anonymous source.
All right,
which you can't have.
And we'll touch more on that here in a minute or so. September 23rd, New York Mayor de Blasio, he announces his withdrawal from the presidential race.
Joe
Frank follows up with the sentence, New Yorkers tremble in fear at the prospect of his return to work. Let's see. And then September 24, Nancy Pelosi, she announces the impeachment inquiry hearings. And he kind of wraps up the year with the entire fourth quarter of 2019. We were subjected to the whole impeachment inquiry thing. As you know, they voted to impeach, but they have not sent the impeachment to the Senate. And that's kind of where we wrapped up the end of the year. And I was just, I just kind of wanted to say, hey, Nancy, what's the holdup? Okay? You guys think you got something. What's the holdup? And I have some possible theories here, okay, which I read in another commentary. Nancy and the Dems and Schumer, they're complaining that Mitch McConnell won't have a fair trial in the Senate. They say it's rigged, as if their own inquiry hearings weren't rigged. And another example of their hypocrisy
Well,
and
they
arrogance.
want to, again, as they always do, they want to change the rules in the middle of the game, and they take this stance that they're so morally correct that we have to go away from what the procedure is.
I've always said they're the ultimate pragmatist. The end justifies the means.
Oh.
So what if their inquiry hearings weren't on the up and up? Their goal is so pure and virtuous. Damn the torpedo. You know?
Case in point, when Harry Reid was interviewed about the lies he told about Mitt Romney, his response to the reporter's question was, "We lost, didn't he?"
Yeah. I just had written here, fair impeachment does not favor the Democrats, and I'll mention why to that. Devin Nunes. Not a lot's been said about Devin Nunes, but my gut's telling me if this impeachment plays out, he could be a key player. Mainly because he was he was the first real politician that was onto the whole effort to submarine President Trump before President Trump was even in office. So my gut's telling me we have not seen the last of Devin Nunes. Okay, you have the fear of the whistleblower. Are we allowed to mention him, or
Let's not say his name.
we'll not say his name?
We know that YouTube will strike us down for that.
Okay, you know what? Everyone knows his name. All you got to do is Google whistleblower. Okay?
EC.
Yeah, EC. Well, they're afraid of him being questioned, and the reason why the Democrats are afraid of the whistleblower being questioned is he's got a direct tie to Adam Schiff. Okay.
Who had concrete proof that Trump colluded with the Russians, which we're still waiting for?
The revered Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, and I know we did a segment on
05 Lieutenant Colonel.
05 Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. They don't want him questioned either because that will lead to the whistleblower, which in turn leads back to Adam Schiff.
And it's been speculated that Adam Schiff is in fact the alleged whistleblower.
Yeah.
Which is why he can't appear.
You know what? They helped him. They helped him write the complaint. Is the theory? Okay. I also read a commentary, and oh man, I almost wanted to do a segment on this one, but the word is Rudy's ready to tear up the Democrats.
Yeah.
He's been over there in Ukraine, and not just Ukraine, but throughout Europe, digging up dirt, which the Democrats are taking issues with because he's not an official government representative. Well, you know what? Says who? Okay, but
they don't seem to have a problem with John Kerry running and enabling Iran.
Yeah, really. Yeah, you know. But the word is Rudy's ready to go, and I can only hope that's true and accurate. So that's where we're at. 2019, Democrats off the rails. By all means, read the commentary. It's a good one. If you want to get a couple good laughs, read it. Okay, it's by Frank Miele, Miele. Okay, and that's it. Any final thoughts?
You know, one last thing is you talked about the Democrats. We don't know if we can get a fair trial. What they want is an unfair trial. They want an unfair trial.
Yeah, they want a rigged unfair
They
trial.
want to change the rules, change the procedures to get the outcome they want.
Yeah, so Nancy, if you got any evidence, produce it, all right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. That's a wrap. As we always like to say here at the Michigan Conservative Roundtable, be safe, watch your six, and don't tread on me.